plug in this, get some batteries in here. So today, we're here to shoot a fake commercial. Why is that? And what am I shooting it on? Well, the Sony Burano. And we're here to test out the new firmware 2.0, or really 2.01 to be exact. Now, those of you who have seen the Burano before, worked with the Burano, or just followed it, know that it's pretty much a more compact version of the Venice line. It has an 8.6K sensor in it, full frame abilities, but there were some features that I think some people probably wanted at launch, and a lot of them are now here. And we're gonna test 3 of them today. What better way, again, than a commercial or a short film? Those to me make sense. It's a cinema camera, so we're gonna roll with it. So we're gonna focus today on a new recording mode, primarily the Super 35 4x3 4K mode. Now, even though this is a full frame camera, that's a very unique proposition here because it allows you to just punch into the sensor without actually scaling anything. So you get a direct crop, still 4K, and you have 4x3 readout, which gives you the ability to use anamorphic glass. We have one lens with us today to do that. And on top of that, one of the other features that have been added is a 1.8 times D-squeeze preview for the monitor. So that of course means that we had to go with a 1.8 times lens. On the 4x3 gives us a 2.39 to 1 image. So it's a match, it really is. And the other feature that's here that we're gonna cover just a little bit, we're not gonna primarily shoot with it, but it is worth noting, is a 3.8K 120p mode in the full frame crop factor that they've labeled, which is basically a 1.07 times crop. So not true full frame technically, but it's a very minimal crop. And that gives you almost the whole sensor at a lower resolution. And because of that, you're able to get that previously unattainable 120 FPS frame rate. In fact, the only way you could do that previously was with a full sensor crop to Super 35. So anyway, we're gonna finish rigging this out, getting our lights set up, and then we're just gonna go right into it. So first, let's watch that commercial, and then we'll show you how it's done.
All right, man, we'll see you later.
Take it easy. Hey, wait. Should you close your tab?
Oh, it's all good, don't worry about it.
I didn't see you get your card.
No card. This bar has tabs, so as soon as I walk out the door, my tab gets paid.
What?
Yeah, you just sign up with the app, and as long as they tap you at the beginning, you can leave whenever you want.
All those mornings I had to walk all the way back here?
Totally pointless.
Yeah, you messed that one up.
Yeah, so I gotta go.
Yeah, let's go. I'm headed that way anyway.
Hey man, you can't keep leaving this here.
So you can see here, we're basically going for an over the shoulder. We're just gonna do some reverse angles. These are our master takes, that and the 2-shot from before. And really, you can see the anamorphic in action here. We have a 1.8 times D-squeeze on display. It looks perfect. And it's really nice to have an anamorphic here because even though the space itself is not that tight, I do only have one lens, so I have to get as much horizontal field of view as possible. Now for a shot like this is pretty simple. We're keeping it simple because we are running pretty bare bones. But you can see we have this really nice blue glow on the side. We're keeping the key on the left side is mostly done to amplify the incidental lights that are in here. And so we're keeping it warm, we're keeping it pretty dim, bounced off the walls, just filling out the background and their face a little more. Trying to make it look like it's nighttime at a bar. And of course, the blue that you're seeing is supposed to kind of simulate a neon sign of some sort. So we do happen to have some real ones here, or at least faux neon signs. And so we're just adding to that. We're adding to the vibe, and set designing takes care of itself in a bar, let me tell you. Now we are shooting with XOCN here, so we do have a lot of latitude. Just before I dialed out some of the blue saturation and intensity, just so that on Jabari's shoulder here on the right, we don't see quite as much saturation. And little tweaks like that do come a long way on set, of course, but even though we have the flexibility in post with that 16-bit linear, we don't want to rely on that. We do want it to look pretty decent out of camera. And right now I'm feeling really good about it. It is supposed to be nighttime after all. So little color here and there, splashing across the walls, but low light levels. So I want to have a little dramatic take here, just for one shot. I figure let's go high frame rate, get some slow motion action going on. Now in the Super 35 4x3 4K crop mode, you do have the option to go all the way up to 60 FPS, 59.94 technically. Now, I actually bring that up because one of the other updates to version 2.01 is that it supports native 24p, so not 23976, actual 24p in XOCN recording in the 16:9 imager modes. Now, we are not in a 16:9 imager mode, to be fair, but still, this whole day we've been running pure 24p, except for this shot that I'm about to do. So right now I'm just gonna go into the full menu, and if we go into the project settings to record mode, you can see we are in 24, we're in the S35 4.3K 4:3 mode, and then I can bump it up to 59.94, and we will execute that. And that takes a few seconds to change. And there we go. So, can't really see it on the behind the scenes camera, but trust me, it is 60p motion, which means we're gonna get a nice dramatic shot here. So we're all done. I do wish we had more lenses today, I'm not gonna lie. 50mm is reliable, but yeah, sometimes you just need that farther reach. At least I got to shoot anamorphic though. Anyway, so version 2.01 of the firmware has a lot of new features. I mentioned this in the beginning, and we only really got to cover one or two of them, to be honest with you. The Super 35 4.3K 4:3 crop mode is really fun to play with, especially shooting anamorphic, because that is such a classical way of shooting, especially if you're doing, cinema. Less common on commercials, admittedly, but we figured why not. And then we took advantage of the pure 24p recording in XOCN. And of course the 1.8 times D-squeeze, so you have to throw that in there as well. But we didn't focus on one of the other imaging modes, and that is the full frame crop, which gives you 3.8K up to 120 FPS. Now I mentioned it before, that's only a 1.07 times crop, very insignificant really when you think about it. That's also how the camera accomplishes its 6K mode even from launch, so that's not exactly unknown territory here, but it does get you that higher frame rate. So since we're talking about XOCN here, there's actually two changes to that as well. The pure 24p recording now supports proxy recording when using XOCN, so that's nice. We actually had it set up here today as well. And then the XOCN carries metadata now for breathing compensation and image stabilization data. So if you have that provided through the lens, especially I imagine if it's an E-mount lens, you don't have to worry about losing it when shooting in XOCN. A big thing here, which we didn't really get to test because we didn't have a comparison for it, a direct comparison, was the improved sensor readout speed. So across the board in every mode, it should be faster, especially when doing things like whip pans or showing moving objects across the screen, like a train, for example. This should be notably improved in firmware 2.01. So if you prefer to shoot in SNQ mode, there are a number of new frame rate options here. I'm just gonna read off the list because it's a little bit. 66, 72, 75, 88, 90, 96, and 110 are now available here in SNQ mode. And by the way, there's also autofocus performance improvements from 23.98 to 29.97 FPS. So if you're within that range, you should have more responsive autofocus. There are honestly many more updates that I don't really have time to cover today, but I will leave you with this, and that's the focus that the firmware has on remote control operation. And the reason I say it is because it's really helpful in the broadcast world. The broadcast world these days tends to incorporate cinema cameras in some major events. You've seen this in things like the Super Bowl, for example, where they'll have cinema cameras rigged out and used in very select shots. To do that, you need remote control abilities though. And so they've added a few here with version 2.01. You get focus and zoom, iris control, and of course, variable ND, which I imagine is a big deal. There are other cases where you could use something like this, especially if you're talking about a cinema shoot where you have to have the camera remotely located from Video Village. But in general, this is what came to my mind. The broadcast world's probably gonna love that option. So that about sums it up for the firmware 2.01 updates on the Sony Burano. You still have things like the full frame 8.6K resolution. It's there if you need it, but it's wonderful to be able to use it in its Super 35 mode in this very tried and true way. Who doesn't love shooting anamorphic, honestly? And to be able to have that flexibility is honestly priceless and stuff. But that's it for our time with it today. So let us know in the comments below what feature you're most excited about in the new version 2.01 firmware for the Sony Burano. I'm Doug with B&H, and I'll see you next time.